G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players who are going to bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. Now, last year, this was the most listened to podcast of 2024, the Midfielders podcast, and I think it has something to do with the guest. I think it's all about the guest I had on that for that episode.
Cheers.
So I'm planning on getting the same guest in, and welcome back to the studio, Damon Adams.
Oh, mate, excited to be here. Like a new fantasy year 2025, most listened to podcast of 24.
Yeah, so Midfielders one. Usually it's the preseason matches one most often. But,
yeah.
And this was according to Spotify Wrapped as well. So maybe it was the most listened to on Spotify.
Can't deny data, my friend.
Yes, that's the one. So no, well done. So I thought I'd get you back on and treat the listeners to another special episode.
Mate, I'm excited. This is my last day of school holidays. So morning beers.
Oh yeah, last time you can do that for a while. Well, you know, legally.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. No, but it has been an exciting start to the fantasy year. Some people wonder if we all get into it a little too early in January, but to be honest, there's only 7 weeks to go till we're on, so people got to switch on.
Yep, that's it. So yeah, 7 weeks, 7 podcasts. That's what I was saying before. It's hard to get all the information out to your listeners in neat segments and all that sort of stuff in those weeks. So got to get stuck into it. So yeah, welcome to anyone who's listening for the first time this year and missed last week's episode. But good to have you on board. Anyways, while we got you here, you are the commissioner of Australia's biggest draft fantasy league, I would say.
Yeah, the DT Shiva. DT Shiva's into its 13th year this year, so it's a stalwart of the fantasy community now. It was started by a guy called Lee Duthie, and we started off with, I think, 7 divisions and 84 coaches. And the whole idea was we would run 12-team leagues and promotion and relegation. The top league, known as the Shiva, would be the prestigious one. And that over the years has grown. Last year, I took over the mantle from Lee, and we grew from 380 coaches to 780 coaches.
That's incredible.
And, we're talking about people from right around the country, right around the world are playing this game. And, the way that we talk about it is there are so many people that are wanting to dip their toe into redraft leagues. Here, obviously, we're all about keeper leagues, and that's probably my biggest passion. But when we're talking about redraft leagues, you might not have 11 mates or 9 mates to be able to set up a regular, consistent league. With DT Shiva, you don't need to worry about it. If you want to play draft, come to us, dtshiva.com.au. Check out the rules and the way that we play our game. And once you've registered, you're guaranteed to get in the league. We will set you up. You'll have a league where you can win cash. There's overall competition prizes as well. And if you win your league, you get promoted. There's different channels to get to the higher divisions. And then you can be in the running to actually say that you win the most prestigious draft competition in the country.
Yeah, 100%. And the point you make about finding league mates, we always get messages all the time. It's like, hey, do you know where I can find a keeper league to join and all that sort of stuff? And the best place I can send people is to our Discord channel, because we do have a league finder thread. And, I do know, and our gold members have actually started a league that's like a 18-man league with 40-player squads type thing. It's like a proper AFL list, which is crazy. But, it kind of takes the burden off trying to find 8 to 10 dedicated people to actually start a league with and just puts in the thing. But the best thing about it, I find, is it just puts you in with the AFL fantasy community. Yeah. So many like-minded people and stuff like that. And I know you're talking single-season leagues, but if you want to start a keeper league as well, you will meet so many people that are of that kind of frame of mind that want to start as many draft leagues as possible. I know one guy in our league, he's in 8 different leagues, I think, like that. So, you will find people in there. So, I couldn't recommend enough if you love fantasy and just want to be involved in the fantasy community. I honestly think that DT Shiva is probably the best way to get involved in the community.
If you want to find fantasy nuffies, we are the place. Maybe that should be the subtitle of the whole competition. Now, you can search DT Shiva on Facebook and just kind of get a vibe with what the community is. We've got our own podcast, which has been running for 11 years now.
Got your own bloody song contest.
Own song contest, which you, my friend, came second in last year. Right. And, right in the mix for one of the songs of the year. But, we, at the moment, are are building our registration. We're over 300 strong for 2025, which is fantastic. We've got a little promotion running to the end of January where if you register, you can win a lot of your entry fee back, thanks to a coach that overpaid that was just happy to give back to the community. So, head to dtshiva.com.au. Get involved. Like, it is a great redraft league to get involved with.
100%. I'm in the DT Shiva. I think Div 26 finished third. Just so agonisingly close to getting out of it.
But I think, given natural attrition of coaches leaving above you, you're going to get promoted, sir.
I know. But I want to get promoted the right way. But also, I like the league I'm in. We have like a group chat and we have a fair bit of banter and chat going on as well.
That's nice. I love these connections that are made. That's the best part about it.
It's awesome. I think most of them I'd like come across before in the fantasy community, but there's probably like 4 or 5 of them that I'd never spoken to before, which has been good too. But that's the beauty of it, the community and that aspect. Anyways, last week on the show, I completely forgot to plug probably one of the most important things that has happened to the AFL Fantasy Draft and Keeper League community, and that is the platform Keeper Fantasy. So if you haven't heard of Keeper Fantasy yet, it's a brand new platform that focuses specifically on draft and keeper leagues. Created by Ryan Power, who is the man behind Ultimate Footy, and we did do a crossover episode, a Shiva and Keeper League crossover episode. Late last year, but I do not expect anyone to actually be listening to fantasy podcasts at that time of year. So.
It's well worth going back and actually listening to that if you're interested in Ryan's story of how Ultimate Footy ended, what he's been doing in the years since, and his kind of foundation for resetting up a brand new startup fantasy platform. Like, it's fascinating to listen to.
100%. But like the platform itself, like, so back then as well, like it wasn't really ready to go yet. Like you could sign up and put your teams in and stuff like that. But the preseason mode's actually open now. And so you can actually get in there and start doing trades with your teammates and all that sort of stuff. But there's just so many different like bits and pieces that is just going to make this app like class above any kind of draft app that we've got. Like, I'm talking just simple things like, notifications for injuries, subs, all that sort of stuff in real time.
Although I had Nick Newman in a bunch of leagues, and so I got like 3 separate. Stop telling me he's injured for the year. I'm devastated.
Yeah, that is awful, and we'll talk about that because there is a player that we think probably will benefit from that later on. But just little things like that, and even just trade requests and stuff that pop up, as notifications and stuff. Just really simple stuff like that. But then this is going to have like a lot of key advanced features as well. Like, you're going to be able to do. Well, you can already do preseason. You can already do pick trading. Up to whatever years in advance your commissioner sets it at. You'll have the opportunity to have rookie lists, veteran lists, injury replacement slots, all the custom lineup sizes that we've enjoyed in the past. Utilities are back.
Flex positions are in
there. There's so much stuff. I'm just having a look. Like split lockouts, so you can avoid loophole deterrence in general. So
you can change your captain multipliers. So you can have different multipliers for vice captains. Captains. You can change loopholing laws. Waiver times. You can kind of set your own in terms of when that comes available for each day. The level of customization on this is every Nuffy Keeper League coach's dream.
100%.
Like, and just going through the settings has made me giddy. I have a problem.
No, it's like you can just run the league in your own way. No more like hacking other platforms and trying to make it work for you and
or
dealing with support.
Off-site spreadsheets to like house all your data.
Yeah, you don't even need that. Like our rules were already in like an online doc. You've got your league charter there where all the rules are in there. I've got all the finance info in there, like who's paid, who hasn't, all that sort of stuff is in there. Plus the history section as well.
I can't wait to see how that evolves. So at the moment, like the one bad thing about filling that in for a long-term keeper league that I've had, the one bad thing for one of the guys in our league is that it gives you a little spoon for all the wooden spoons that you've won. And so as I was feeling, he's won 4. He's got no trophies, 4 spoons. Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
You know if it's you.
I'm pretty happy with the Premiership Cups next to me
that's
in
delicious.
One of the league, though. So
go to see your teams and get all the little gold trophies in a row. That makes me feel good.
So it's a pretty awesome platform. Make sure you get to keeperfantasy.com, I think it is. I'll just double check that. But yeah, Keeper Fantasy. Oh, where is it here? I'm going to have to edit this out now. Keeperfantasy.com. That's the one. So make sure you head to keeperfantasy.com. Check it out. And make sure you're involved in what in my opinion, is the number one AFL fantasy draft platform, draft and keeper league platform. I've moved all my leagues there.
Oh, me too. It's a labour of love. It's exciting.
The Shiva's going to be there this year.
Shiva will be there as well. And plus, with some extra functionality that Ryan himself is working on for our community. So, he's going above and beyond to create a community hub for Shiva in platform.
That's going to be sick.
Which is going to be incredible. I can't wait to see it.
I'm actually going to have Ryan on the podcast for a bit of a bonus episode later this week and a bit of an update of things that are happening and things that are to come in the keeper platform. But anyway, enough plugging. Let's get stuck into the podcast. This week we're talking about midfielders, all right?
Yes.
So we'll start off with the undervalued player. And these are the undervalued players based on last year's average. Rule of thumb in this one is we don't talk about anyone who averaged over 80 last season because generally they're the players that are going to be kept in keeper leagues. You're not going to be throwing those back to the pool unless you've got a very shallow keeper slot. But so we'll talk about players who averaged under 80 last year. And the first one of those is Tom Powell. What's your read on this guy coming into season 2025?
I really like him as a fantasy player. I really like Tom Powell. I think, one of the consistent things that we're going to be talking about is what are the lineup for some of these teams? Because the Kangaroos are kind of in this period of development where they've had some established players come into the team and take a lot of that fantasy role, but they've also got this up-and-coming central spine that could really take over. Tom Powell being one of those people, but is he going to have enough ball-winning time to boost his fantasy score up higher than it was?
Well, the big thing with him is, and I think there was a preseason report last week saying that he was playing on the halfback line, and we actually saw that at the end of last season. I think he averaged 78.7 for the last season, but I think he just had some big scores at the end playing on that halfback line. From memory, there's a few 80 pluses and 90 pluses and stuff like that playing on that halfback line. Now, the biggest question is Caleb Daniel.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about him in the preseason, and I think even Clarko was saying we're giving him a license to roam or to be that number one distributor off that half back line. But do you think there's room in defence for multiple people to kind of flourish there?
I mean, in other teams there has been, but when you factor in the Zach Fisher as well, is he in the best 22? Zach Fisher.
Well, I think he's gone. Yeah.
So if he gets pushed to the side, that probably bodes better for Tom Powell.
You've got Sheasel probably going into the midfield like we did that last year. But
is McKercher playing down back?
Well, that's the thing. Apparently, in that same preseason report, he was switching between halfback and midfield, and that's not a really highly kind of you don't want a rotation like that because that's a lot of running. So I think he's going to play one or the other, but it's going to be interesting
because that midfield is. I mean, stacked probably isn't the right word. But
there's potential though.
Yeah, and even Jai Simpkin could get pushed out.
Was Luke Parker's in as well?
So
what happens there?
Exactly. Whereas Luke Parker strikes me as more of an attacking attacking midfielder than defensive. But I don't know. I do like Tom Powell. I would have said 2024 was a disappointing year for his owners. That they were looking for a big breakout.
And actually started like a house on fire.
It did, and then he had a real dip in the middle of the year, and kind of all things hit the skids. I don't have a lot of hope that he could get any higher than mid-80s.
Yeah, I'd take that every day of the week, though. And defender status, hopefully, that comes in. You take an 80, 85 averaging defend every day of the week. I think he can push the 80 mark. He got close last year anyway.
Would you? I mean, it's bad practice. Would you draft hoping that he would pick up that status along the way? I
would, because midfielders that play across the halfback, people that are the class as midfielders that play across the halfback, just halfback flankers in general, they're the new midfielders. We're seeing a decline in midfielders anyway.
Yep.
And in their scoring, I don't think anyone averaged over 110 from memory last year. Was around the mark, and it was only the Rucks and other defenders that got over that.
Adam Treloar was the highest averaging midfielder.
Yeah, I think he might have been around that 110 mark, but it doesn't really happen. So it's probably ideal that you want the defenders playing in midfield or excess ones anyway. So, but then when he does get it, you can swing him back. So now I would go a bit earlier on him, even though he's mid only. On to the next one, Clayton Oliver, averaged 77.7 last season. We all know the off-field issues. Do you think he can get back to his best this season?
No.
Okay.
Do I think he'll improve? He'd have to.
Have to go better than 77, surely.
He had some absolute stinker games last year. 30s, 40s, where he was playing all four quarters, he wasn't getting subbed off. Last year, there was a lot that he was dealing with. You've got to hope that with a steady preseason that he can at least get in the 90s. He 2 years ago was arguably the competition's best midfielder.
He would have been your like number one pick if everything that off season didn't kind of happen.
He's still only 27 years old. He's got a lot of football left in him if he can kind of get his act together. And I really hope that that's the case because, it's sensational to watch at his best. It's not like he has anyone standing in his way in the Melbourne midfield either.
Yeah.
So, like, no one's kind of coming in and saying, like, they're the man.
Petrarca's already injured as well.
Right.
So, like,
another cracked rib.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, they've got rookies coming in, but, that's that. You got Trent Rivers making more of an impact into the midfielder, but again, it's still not taking Clayton's place. Mid-90s?
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. I think just the fact as well that, like, he's training right now. Yeah, and he wasn't doing that last year. Like
last year, he was in the midst of it all,
and he was actually back way before Christmas, like early, like trying to get better and improve and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if he's got all his shit sorted, there's no way he goes under 95. I don't reckon. He's just got to have that shit sorted.
Can you see the ceiling coming back?
Yeah, I can. If everything goes to if he's fit and firing and his head's in the right spot, definitely.
Where would you draft him in a new keeper?
Oh, I think in the community rankings, he's probably
which is well worth checking out if you haven't been 100%. Onto the keeper site functionality.
He's going around the 5th round, I reckon. So,
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I guess there's a lot of youngsters kind of going early. I think. Oh no, sorry, about pick 5th. So about 4th round he's going. So
if you get old school Clayton Oliver, absolute bargain.
Yeah.
But if it continues to be kind of like this inconsistent, injury prone, dealing with his mental health as well, then it's a real issue spending that high pick on him.
Yeah, 100%. I might get the draft rankings open just in front of us so we can actually have a look at them, the community ones, because I got the Supercoach ones here as well, and I'm just kind of interested to see where people are. So yeah, he's 52 in Supercoach.
You pretty much hit that on the nose.
So, yeah. Anyway, Isaac Cumming is the next one. So he was out of favour last year. Only played the 4 games. He's listed as a midfielder only this year, but we all know he's a defender, right?
Yeah.
Is that where you see him playing at the Crows?
Have to.
So on that halfback role, he was like a 80. I think he's averaged 90 in the past. Do you think he can kind of return to that kind of form for the Crows?
Firstly, devastated that he picked the Crows.
Yeah, he loves Tex. He's best mates with him.
I know. Like when Perryman obviously went to Collingwood, and Peatling wasn't in the mix for Port, but I wanted Isaac Cumming in that Dan Houston role. Issue is injury prone.
Yeah,
and he's injured again. Like he strained a hamstring pre-Christmas.
I think he's still struggling with it.
Even in a new, like the next year's keeper draft, with the first 150 gone, I probably still wouldn't pick him in the first round of that.
Yeah.
I'd go for youth over Cumming. He will have the opportunity if he gets his body right. Excellent. We're really on here, but I don't know. I just couldn't trust a player that breaks down as much as Cumming does.
Yeah, and given that he just wasn't, he's not a defender to begin with, so he needs to play a few games to actually like get that defender status because you probably
so you're relying on platform, the platform to give him that status as you go.
Yeah,
and he may not play enough games to qualify.
And you're right, like he's ranked 152 on the community rankings as well. Like in our league, that's back in the pool.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I think. Like, Mitch Hinge really came on last season.
Yeah,
They've got young Luke Nankervis, who's probably someone who wants to crack into that best 22. Brody Smith is probably on the way out. I think it's going to be hard for him to get a game.
I think Crows fans would love to see the end of Brody Smith.
Yeah, but there's like...
Is Rory Laird going half-back again?
That's the other thing as well. Yeah, Rory Laird's
He's got to get out of the middle.
There. So is there even room for him? Like, does he end up on the wing? Because they're probably... and I don't think that'll actually happen. I think they've recruited him to play as a defender, but they're probably lacking in outside runners on the wing more than anything.
Yeah.
And that could push maybe someone like Nankervis up there, but yeah.
I like Isaac Cumming, but not for me.
We'll stay on the Crows. James Peatling is the next guy I want to talk about. I think he's exactly the guy the Crows need to kind of play that tough inside midfielder. They've played Matt Crouch in that kind of role in the past, but he's pretty ineffective when he actually gets the footy in his hand. They've had the Sam Berry to try to play a similar type role as well.
That one season was just beautiful for his own.
Averaging like 20 tackles per game or something like that. But hasn't really had the opportunity since. I think he's the guy who comes in and adds that little bit of extra class, can also kind of go forward as well as he's done in the past for GWS. I'm just not sure on what the bump he gets this season. And hear me out. This is my reasoning, all right? So Dawson and Saligo seem to be like the main users, all the guys that are going forward. They're going to get Sid Draper.
Sure.
He's going to go straight in. I know he's actually got a few back issues at the moment, and I don't know if he's training too much, but I think by the time round one comes, like, this is a prized midfielder that they've drafted in probably the best midfield draft of all time, almost.
And he looks a likely time.
Exactly. And just look at his sample highlights and stuff. He's just winning clearances against bigger bodies and stuff like that. And he's the perfect guy to kind of drive the ball forward and probably take a bit of heat off Dawson and stuff like that. But then Peatling's got to have to slot in behind that as well. I know Laird's going out, but what are your thoughts?
I really like Peatling. I think he's got all the tools to make an impact just from a game sense for the Crows. It was frustrating if you got on board him in 2024. It was frustrating because he would come in for the Giants, have a fantastic game, fill up the stat sheet, and then they would drop him the next week, or he'd be subbed the next week. And it was really, really odd in terms of his implementation throughout the year. When players got injured, he played a bit more in the back end of the year, and then they tried to sign him up to a deal. But of course, the way he kind of been utilised in the side led him to leave.
Yeah.
What you say about the Crows needing him is absolutely true. They have just looked stagnant in there, and he's got that kind of skill set. Where that leaves his fantasy scoring, I mean, that's your question as well. What did he average?
I think it was hard to say because he got subbed so often, but I think it was around the 60s.
So he's absolutely better than that average, right? Because you just wouldn't see the subbings again in the same way.
Correct, yeah.
So mid-80s, I think, would be conservative.
And that's what's strange about, because by the end of the season, he was firmly in GWS's best 22, and I thought, well, he's signed, sealed, and delivered. He's going to stay there now because, he's going to be there. But, I think for the season, let me just double check, it was 61.8, which is incredibly low when you look at, you go from round 19 onwards, score of 86, 133, 97, 83, 33 there. I can't really remember what happened in that one. But then 82, 103 in a qualifying final, was one of their best players, narrow loss to Sydney. Acquired a semi-final with a score of 65. But there's a stretch there where he's pretty much going 80 each week, and it kind of coincides where he's not getting subs. So every chance of him averaging around that 85 mark.
He's got a nice ceiling.
Yeah, and he's proven, he's got a 133 score here. So, where he's had, 28 touches, 5 marks, 11 tackles. And that's the thing, we talked about Sam Berry before. He was their kind of go-to guy when they needed that kind of pressure player in there, and he can do that in spades. So.
He's hit double-digit tackles 4 times last year.
Yeah.
If you could get him as an M5, M6, I think you're swimming.
Yeah, 100%.
It's great.
And he's another one that's in our draft pool because he was undrafted last year as well. So
it'd be a really interesting one if you're in a 10-keeper league or a 15-keeper league. He'd have to sit right on that edge.
Yeah.
But in terms of capability, absolutely, it's there for Peatling.
Depends what you're doing, because now with the keeper platform, obviously you don't have to play 7 midfielders. But I always found last year the midfielder the hardest line to fill out with good scorers.
No doubt. That depth is so important.
Yeah, so someone like him is going to be a walk-up start to most teams, I think. All right, we'll move on to the breakout contenders. These are the guys coming into their 3rd, 4th years that we feel could be in line for a breakout. Let's have a look at Finn Callaghan to start off with.
I like him.
I've got a video coming out about him where I basically just say, he just needs to break out this season. There's nothing stopping him. And I think it's going to happen. Peatling's gone, so there's just extra midfield time there and, kicks and things to get. Canelio can barely stay in the park anymore. Callan Ward is, 50 years old now? Something like that.
Hair's still beautiful.
I think GWS just need him to step up. There's going to be a lot of, I don't know if pressure's the right word, but I think he needs to actually step up and become that kind of number 2 midfielder behind Tom Green and offer a bit more support and stuff like that. And I think it's just out of necessity and just timing, it's going to happen this year. Thoughts?
He's a player that looks so good. He's old class, Callaghan, and you feel like he's been around for a long time. It feels like we've been waiting for him to break out for ages, but he only turns 22 in April.
Yeah.
So he's young. There's so much time left. And
he's played 3 seasons at AFL level, so
you're not going to be confused. He's not going forward. He's not going defence. He's a midfielder.
Yeah.
So he's got to be given that opportunity now. But you're right, in terms of speaking about guys like Callan Ward, how long can these guys hold on in these positions? There is opportunity there. GWS are always a funny one in terms of how they line up and where that kind of point distribution goes to, because we've had fantastic seasons from Keneally. We've had fantastic seasons from Josh Kelly. But even like in the last couple of years, those two haven't shone as well. It's really been their half-back production that's really got a lot of that point scoring through Whitfield. And even forward with Brent Daniels last year and in the past Toby Green. Is this his year? I don't know. I traded out Finn Callahan to keep a league last year for Dane Zorko on the way to a premiership.
Little clang.
Yeah.
Drop there.
Thanks. But I really like him. You know, for those who've put the investment in, you just got to see this one out.
Yeah, I think so too. I have faith. I have faith that he jumps up to being, 85, 90 plus average guy this year. So.
I'd want 90 to 95 minimum.
Yeah, true. But I think he just gets to that point where it's like, yes, I've justified keeping him.
Yeah, if we get to the end of 25 and he's averaged 85, that's a fail.
Yeah, true. I'd say that. But yeah, I think this year you'll get to like some reasonable scoring out of him a bit more consistently. George Wardlaw is the next one I'll talk about. I think there is a breakout coming. It's just, I'm not sure what his ceiling, his average,
what does that look
is
like?
Going to be. Like, he could be anywhere from like Jack Viney to Jack Steele, in terms of like the type of player.
Jack Viney's had some good years.
He's had 100 plus averages for sure, but I'm not sure if he just pushes to that like next echelon of scorers. You know what I mean? Like, I just think Shizu and LDU are just going to be scoring too much in the midfield, and even LDU's only a 95 kind of guy. I see him like a pretty similar type player. Shizu's going to be the kind of real stat getter in there. So, and then McKerch is like going to be going in there eventually as well, who's also a big stat man, stat man. But yeah, so I can see him getting in there as well. So like, I think he might be suited to like the more defensive work in the midfield, or the grunt work, or the contested work, which might just cap him a little bit. What do you think?
I'd be fascinated to see, because now you're doing the Supercoach rankings as well, the difference between the two platforms, because I feel like inherently Wardlaw has got to have a bigger impact on the Supercoach stage rather than AFL Fantasy type scoring.
Well, I think if Wardlaw is slightly ahead in the AFL Fantasy rankings, where he's 58, and then I think it's 45 or something like that.
See, but both of those are pretty high for mine. Yeah. Like as you said, my instinct is to say impact over scoring here.
Yeah.
He's probably one of those players for me, and you say this about Jack Viney, that he'll average in 90s to 95s across his career, and then somewhere out of the blue he'll have 105 to 110, but he'll do it once.
Yeah.
And that'll be it. And you just got to hope that you just get the range for that year.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be this year. I think he's still got a lot of building to do.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, that's nothing to be sneezed at. It's just like you kind of just, and it's not set in stone. It's just the kind of vibe you get, the type of player he is. That's all. Moving on to Jake Saligo. Last year, I guess, was his breakout season, but he didn't average over 80. So I guess to be the breakout, you've got to average over 80 at least. 76.9 was his average last season. Do you think he can go bigger with Draper and Peatling coming into that midfield?
I don't think he'll go bigger exactly, but surely the opportunity is there. Like when I speak to Crows fans, the two people that they talk about most when they're putting together their midfield is Dawson and Saligo. Yep. They're the two first names in there every time. And you're right that Sid Draper's coming in and he looks everything that the Crows need him to be. But Saligo, I think, has earned his stripes. So the opportunity is there. Whether that's his skill set, whether the Crows need him to be a stat accumulator, I think they've got enough of those, just get empty possessions on the Crows list already. Yeah,
I agree. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he might somewhat stagnate. Like, it's more so I just don't think he's going to, again, kind of like similar to the other guys we talked about, I'm just not sure he's going to be a huge ceiling player.
85?
Yeah, that kind of thing. Because, like, if he was given all that opportunity last year and still didn't kind of go big, I can see him just getting better through natural improvement, but I'm just not sure if it's going to be huge, like how many guys can average 100 plus in that side,
right?
That sort of stuff. So I don't know. I think he's a good player, and I think he will improve, but I'm just not sure if it's going to be a huge one. But he'll push to that too good for the podcast status this season anyway.
You just don't see Jake Saligo Centurion.
Yeah, no, you're right. It just doesn't give that vibe, does it? Jace Burgoyne is the next one on the list here, and this breakout contenders is a very long list, and so apologise for the length of this podcast, people. We will speed it up.
People want to know about midfielders.
We will speed it up later on. Trust me, we'll move through some of the other ones quicker. But Jace Burgoyne is the next one to talk about. He averaged 76.5 last season, and that's without finals because I think he had a few good scores in the finals as well. But his first half average of the season was 71.1. That's pretty good playing as a defender. But then you look at his second half average of the season, averaged 92.6.
Had some ripping games in
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. So obviously he's probably a little bit less valuable without defender status, but I still think he's capable of being like a 90-plus outside midfielder in future. Next season. Not next season. I think the way he plays, he's just like always that guy who's the outlet guy for Port. Like he'll be in a space on his own to just get a +6. You know, he always seems to be the next kind of contest. He's lost his man somewhere.
He's a great runner.
Yeah, he lost his man somewhere, and he'll just get like little +6s there everywhere he goes, really. I'm just not sure if he's a 90-plus average midfielder this season, you know. And the reason I say 90-plus is when you think about the best fantasy wingmen in the competition, you know, your Blake Acres and guys like that. That's those kind of guys that play out. They're usually 90 guys. They're not 100-plus guys. They're usually 90 guys. And I think he's capable of being one of those guys. It's just, when does that happen? Probably another year or two away, but yeah.
Midfield-only status really hurts him for mine. You know, you talk about these wingers that, you know, do have good fantasy scorers. Jeremy Sharp, another one from last year. They're burst players, so they'll do it once in every couple of games, and so they're real streaming options for mine.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I love Port Adelaide as a fan. Do I love them? You know, bittersweet love.
I'm on the fence.
But I don't really like to own Port Adelaide players because across the journey, we haven't been a prolific fantasy scoring team.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, Jace had such a good second half of the year, but does him being a winger really knock that down? For mine, it does. Like, I wouldn't, even in a redraft league, I don't see his name and think, great option. I don't know, and maybe I'm just kind of stuck in my own mind with that one.
No, I'm not talking him up as like a primo quality candidate for the future. It's more so, like I was saying, we still play 7 midfielders in our league. He's a starting midfielder for me, you know, and probably should be for most leagues if you can go that 80-plus mark.
If he was my M6, I'd feel uneasy about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's 92 average in the second half of the season.
And that's it. I'm obviously not taking into account his scoring, and I'm being a bit unfair to Jace.
Yeah. Like, that's a 12-game stretch as well. It's not just 3 or 4 games, you know.
Like, if you were trying to throw him to me in a trade, like, I'd look at him and be like, no, thank you. Come back with another option, please.
Yeah, but like the community loves him as well. Like, he was in the top 100 last night, but it does fluctuate
of a new
little
keeper
bit.
draft. Yeah,
because he fits the mold though. Like, you've got a few people that don't.
And I know he's young.
97 he is right now. He's young. He kind of had that big second half of the season.
Yeah, he's got good family lineage.
Yeah, that's it. Even though his old man wasn't the better
Burgoyne. Yeah.
So, and not the I think he was. I had Peter Burgoyne, I reckon, in the 2009 classic season, and burnt me big time because he was underpriced and did nothing. But anyway,
15 years later, it still burns.
Yeah, was it 2009? Around that time, anyway. Moving on to the next one. Well, similar kind of story here. Oliver Dempsey.
Is he midfield only this year?
Oh, he's in keeper.
In keeper, he's been given the extra
position.
position.
Something we forgot about is the extra positions in keeper.
Makes him a lot more valuable.
Yeah, it makes him a little more. So if you're using the keeper scoring, then you've got him as a forward, but as a mid only in the AFL fantasy platforms. What do you think? Like, I know he's got the wing to himself, but you know, can he buck the trend of the low scoring winger?
I know this has got nothing to do with his scoring, but I get really frustrated following a guy like Oliver Dempsey and seeing like 6 people with blonde flowing hair play for Geelong and getting really confused as to who's got the ball.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I've got a +6 when I really don't.
He quite often has long sleeves, I think, so that generally helps.
Okay.
Yeah, generally helps, but I know what you mean.
Ollie Dempsey, he had a great year and some real highlights throughout the year as well. You know, some decent scoring along the way. Can he continue that upward trend? I mean, Geelong, you feel like they're aging, but when you looked at the team that absolutely kicked Port off the park in that qualifying final last year, they were young, they were speedy, and they had a lot of things going for them. I think there's a real space for Ollie Dempsey. Do I think he averaged 72.8? I would be happy with an 80 average.
Yeah.
In keeper with a forward status, that's super valuable.
Yeah, 100%.
In other platforms, I'd happily take him later in a draft, but I'd want him to slide there.
Yeah, depends on the platform you're playing, I think, as to where you take Ollie Dempsey. Next one, just going by averages, Billy Dowling averaged 68.1 last season. He was that underage fantasy jet, but it's more the role at the Crows being the issue. Like, I don't see him becoming a midfielder like he was as a junior, do you?
We spoke about this guy, I think, every time I came on the podcast last year. Because at that stage, I don't think he debuted. The Crows weren't playing that well, and we were like, where the hell is Billy Dowling? What did he end up playing? The 6-8 games?
Something like that,
last year?
Yeah.
I really like Billy Dowling still.
Yeah.
Will he get the opportunity? I don't know. Like, so that Peatling's in, Cummings in, Neil Bullen's in, Sid Draper's in. And you think all are more likely to take a spot in the 22 than Billy. But I don't know. Like, he's got some tools.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the best 22 on AFL.com from early December. They don't even have him in their best 22 at the moment. So
Dan Curtin's another one that I've completely forgotten about that needs some time, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, it's an interesting one. I just think whenever he ends up getting a consistent game or whatnot, I just think he's going to be a wing, half forward, kind of maybe half back if you're lucky. But I see those kind of positions already filled up at the moment at the Crows.
So have you called on him?
I've called on him for now. Yeah, I just don't think he's going to be... I think he could be like an 80-plus guy one day, but probably not this season, I think.
He's right on that edge of like, do we see him delisted in 2 years, or does he need extra opportunity somewhere else? Would anyone want to give him an opportunity?
His state league form was pretty encouraging before he was playing. So like,
that's what a lot of people were making the call for. Why is this guy in? And Brody Smith's
happens to a lot of players. It's just like when you have an abundance of players in a position, you kind of have to reinvent yourself to be something else, which isn't going to be as fantasy friendly, or go somewhere else. And
there's still guys like, I'm not sure if he's on your list here, but Zach Taylor still hasn't really had much of a go at all.
Yeah, so he's another. Like, there's so many young kids that are going to come in, or need to get a go on that side before they're even going to be talked about as a fantasy player. So,
is Dan Curtin a midfielder? Because if he is, then see you later, Billy.
Oh, who knows? Yeah, I don't know what Dan Curtin's going to be. To be honest, I was the big Dan Houston rider-offerer last season and got pot shots everywhere.
Dan Curtin?
Sorry, Dan Curtin. Did I say Dan Houston? Dan Curtin. Well, no, I'm writing him off too. But no, sorry. Dan Curtin. I got roasted on TikTok by all the kids for not having Dan Curtin in my top 5 fantasy players, rookies. So, but who's laughing now?
Someone's an expert here.
Anyway, let's move on to Archie Perkins. Have you given up on Archie Perkins yet?
Yeah.
I think I have too. You know what's really weird? Most of the time, like, okay, so position change at the start of the year. Another Heff vindication moment here. I put out a list of champion data in position classifications at the end of last year, and basically told people like, this is going to be the positions. Like, this is 90% accurate of what's going to be the position. And a guy on the Discord channel made a very good point, and I agree with him, and said that can't be true because because Archie Perkins is listed as mid only. And look at his CBA numbers. He only had 33% CBAs for the season, 7.5 CBAs over the last 6 weeks. So I'm like, this guy has definitely got forward status. There is no way he's going to be a mid-only. The champion data positions must be wrong. Roll out the positions, he's a mid-only in AFL fantasy. Like, it's crazy.
Vindicated by Keeper Fantasy, though, who have restored the forward status for Archie Perkins.
So, but no, actually, I was right in the end because he did line up with the champion data position, but I had myself believing that they weren't going to be right because of Archie Perkins. But really strange one. I guess we don't know what happened at VFL level those 2 weeks he played down there. Maybe he played 100% midfield time and that brought him over the threshold. I don't really know. But for me, he's on his last warning, like last chance. He needs to do something. The only thing that I'm holding on to hope with, and I do have him on my team, not going to keep him. He's already been on the cut list. But Stringer has gone, and Stringer was still getting 30% of midfield time.
Yeah,
CBA time.
But Parrish hardly had a season last year.
True. But the thing is, like, he had 33% of CBAs over the year, and I think he did play most games except for 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah.
If he can get that up to 40%, like, remember round 1 when he was just sole midfielder?
Round one was incredible.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, if he can, we've seen what he can do. He just needs the opportunity consistently. And if he can eat in some of Stringer's minutes, I'm not really sure because we saw Shield come back and just kind of be another inside midfielder. I thought he was gone, and who knows what's happening with him. There are talks at Essendon about just a few different positions. This is kind of not that relevant, but, Nick Martin maybe going back to the wing. Yep. There's a slot on the half-back line opening up. There's been talk of Merritt going to the half-back line, which I think has happened for the last 5 years, which never happens. But Shield's another one they're talking about maybe going back there. Again, I just don't see him off that half-back type. I'm not saying Perkins is the guy, but just should cause some reshuffling and might open up some midfield time for him if someone like Shield does go somewhere else or something like that. But anyway, he's on his last warning. I wouldn't be hoping too much for him.
You've been Sammy Durham's progression really hurt him.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think someone like Ben Hobbs, who's still sitting waiting for opportunities.
He's going to probably get it before he does.
You would think so.
Yeah, given that he got a whole season and didn't really do that much. But anyway.
Walk away.
Next guy I am big on is Ollie Hollands. More so now with the news that Nick Newman is out for the season. And he's been training on the halfback all preseason. And he played the last 3 games of the season on the halfback line, average 99 there from those 3 games.
Love that.
So I think he's got a breakout coming. I don't think Sam Docherty's going to go back to defence. I think they're going to play him on a cruisy wing role. It's probably going to be Hollands' wing role. I don't
think so. Yeah, I think a lot of the fantasy community groupthink at the moment has Sam Docherty locked into that halfback position.
I know, but I think I'm just looking at training reports. They have not been playing Docherty there regardless.
Yeah,
and they've been playing Hollands there anyway. If you look at the way, you've still got Saad, that's that kind of other runner off the other halfback flank, and then you kind of float between kind of those taller or kind of taller intercepting kind of players. Back there, I think Hollands is the guy who just goes back there and he's the kind of main beneficiary from Nick Newman's injury.
After a season that was so plagued by injury, and you look at guys like Zach Williams as well, some youth and consistency off the halfback line is logical.
Yeah, they're all 30 plus back there, except for Wiedering, who's like 27. I think who's he? Brody Kemp, there's other tall guy, but he can play forward as well. But I just look at their back 6, and I think there's probably room for one person to go in there. Are they going to put Ollie Hollands there that they've been training there all pre-season anyway, or are they going to put Doc, who's been more midfield?
I love the argument.
Yeah,
I love the fact that you're going against the grain here. Certainly 62.4 average. There is so much room there for improvement.
100%. No, I think Ollie Hollands is in for a big breakout year. If he gets that halfback role. If you're looking... if you see the next training report, now Nick Newman's gone, now he's back on the wing and they've moved Docherty back there, then maybe think differently. But I just don't see why they'd do that if they've been touting Docherty as a midfielder, as a winger.
Just clip this and then just put it in the bank.
That's it. I think Docherty can still be a good scorer on the wing though as well, just with his work rate and stuff like that. But he's also, he's probably going to get injured, Docherty as well.
Well, although the last time he came back from a long period off, he had a banger year, but he's now 2 years older than that.
Yeah, exactly. So I have no faith in Docherty to hold, that's all. Jasper Fletcher is the next guy I want to talk about. I don't think, I just put him in the same class as those wingers.
Yeah.
Could be a 90 average guy one day, like a 90 average winger one day. He's got the class, and I just think he's a good user of the footy, hard worker. He could be around an 85 to 90 kind of midfielder one day, but that's probably going to be capped. He's not going to be bigger than that.
Yeah. I wouldn't put my investment in there now.
No, not now.
We started the first half of season last year without Will Ashcroft, who came back in. And at that time, for the second half of the year, was really only averaging that kind of 70 to 90 range. And you would think that he's going to have more output this year.
Yeah.
You got Levi coming in, you got Kadeem Coleman coming back. I don't see the improvement or much improvement coming out of Jasper for now.
Yeah, probably should be in the stash option more so than the breakout contenders, I think, because my thing is more so down the line.
Once Zorko's gone.
Yeah. So maybe that's more of a thing. But yeah, you're right. And I think just bringing Levi into that midfield, it's going to cause some reshuffling as well. You think you're going to have McCluggage and you're going to have Berry as your main wingers. Yeah. Maybe that does eat up a bit of time for him as well, because I don't see any of those guys getting much inside time anymore as well. So anyway, moving on to Ruben Ginbey. What's your take on him? Do you think he ends up as a halfback flanker or a midfielder?
In his first season, he looked so promising. And then last year, West Coast fans weren't even talking about him as one of the good youth players that they had. It was Harley Reid, maybe Elijah Hewitt to get a nod every now and again. And that was it. Ruben wasn't even in the discussion. But he's got to get games.
Surely.
He's just got to get games. 60.1 average last year. There is potential there. Could he get to a 75? I don't think he's going 80 plus.
Yeah, maybe not.
Not for now.
I don't know if he gets that halfback role that people have talked about, because he's played on that a little bit at the end of last season. Big bodies. Yeah, Shannon Hearn thrived back there in a similar kind of role. So,
bring back those days.
And he did play like that as a junior as well. So it just West Coast is just a team I have paid zero attention to as to what their midfield makeup is and all that sort of stuff, because they're just so crap to watch. No one gets a touch anyway, so it doesn't matter. So
Tim Kelly's getting on now. You got guys like Clay Hall who are waiting for opportunities, and I don't know, their 22 could be anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. I think he was too highly touted as a junior to not be a good player at least. And I think the fantasy scoring should follow eventually. Another one, I'm not sure if it is this year. And maybe some of these guys could be more stashes. But another one, Caleb Windsor, has been training on the half-back. A bit of talk there as well. He looks pretty classy anyway. It's just he was on the wing a lot of last season. But again, if he moves to that half-back line, Melbourne essentially, they're screaming out for a half-back distributor.
Yeah.
Really. That's why they wanted Dan Houston so badly and spewing that fell through. So now they're going to have to make a new player into that kind of distributor. So is it going to be Judd McPhee? Is he going to be the guy?
Saw your TikTok.
Is it going to be Caleb Windsor? Or are they going to stick Xavier Lindsay there, which has been a lot of the talk as well, the new draftee, who plays a nice outside role. There's a lot of talk of him, just they're sticking him there and making him that kind of McKercher of Melbourne type thing.
I'm excited.
What do you think happens?
I'm excited about Caleb Windsor. I would love to dive into the Keeper League tools and just see like breakout tracker wise, community wise, like where does everyone rank this guy? Because he is one that I would probably put some investment in long term.
He's just outside the top 100 in the fantasy one. So.
Yeah. So, in let's say like a league where you got 10 coaches, each keeping 15, like he's well in that keeper range. So people are putting investments in Caleb. I'm excited to see what he'll become.
Yeah, he's a bit lower in the Supercoach circles, probably because he's a bit more outside.
You can't necessarily. I can't see Melbourne having a good year this year. I think there's a big period of change coming up in the next couple of years. As Keeper League coaches, he would be one that I would putting stocks in.
Yeah, I think so too. Ed Allen is another one that a lot of our listeners wanted us to talk about. I feel like, I'm not sure if it's a breakout, and again, I reckon this one probably should be in the stash options as well, but I think he breaks into the team this season. And it's purely just because look how old their midfield is. Like,
you and Geordie were having a good discussion about this last week.
Someone's going to break down there, and someone's going to actually have to move into that side. I think Ed Allen got that one game, I think it was the last game of the season where he played full-time inside mid and scored an 80 as well. So, like, I'd be looking at him late in drafts because I don't think a lot of people are going to be talking about him because, like, when you look at that midfield, like, you think about Dacos, you think about Pendlebury after him, but then you've got, like, Crisp still going in there. You've still got Tom Mitchell going in there. Jordan De Goey obviously comes back, but he's 29. Will be 30 this year, I think, as well. You see 5 guys ahead of him, and you're like, there's no way Ed Allen is actually going to break in. But, like, I don't think there's too far off. Like, even Tom Mitchell's already injured, so it doesn't really matter. There's already kind of an opening there. I don't think they're too far off of changing the guard in that midfield and just playing someone like Ed Allen to give him that experience.
Were we having the exact same discussion about Finn McRae last year?
Probably, yeah.
Like, it has such echoes of that for me. I don't know. I don't know. Like, all those points that you make are absolutely on the ball. Like, like you said, Titch is done pretty much, which is sad. We love you, Titch. But as a fantasy scorer, his days are numbered. This could happen, sure, but I just don't know how much investment to put in it.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I'd
like late in drafts only, right? Like you would not want to be going early.
If a breakout, I don't think a breakout really happens. Again, it should be a stash, but it's probably the next season where he's going to probably break in full time. Like round 1, you're expecting him to play there 2026 and then be a mainstay midfielder in there. But again, the reason why he's in there is just that he's a good underage scorer that a lot of people kind of took on rookie lists and stuff like stash options and stuff like that because of those underage numbers. And he's actually been going okay at VFL level as well. Not huge, but like scoring in the 80s, averaging in the 80s there as well. So
if you're one of the leagues that play with rookie lists and he's on it, love it.
Yeah.
Like he is a long-term investment for sure.
And then the last one in this one is Nathan O'Driscoll. Again, I'm not sure if he's the reason why he's not a stash is because they're coming into their 4th seasons. Like they got a breakout this season, but he only played 2 games last year, and I think the first one was subbed. The only full game that he played last season, he scored 79, and because he's a winger, he will be capped. But I think he's going to be just has the potential to be a contributor, or at least kind of. Like, I expect him to line up for them round 1.
Do you?
Yeah, and play. Well, you look at the wingers that they played. Last year, you got Sharp, who had a decent season, but they're still rotating. Aish, they're still O'Meara on those kind of on the other wing. Like and then once he was fit, he kind of pushed them out straight away. Like it's like once he came back in. So if he's fit and firing, and do you remember his debut year, like where he was slotting goals from boundaries and stuff like that? Like he's a fair class. He's just been like so hampered by injury over the last 2 seasons.
I know that there would just be a lot of keeper coaches that would be so frustrated with Fremantle investment options. Neil Erasmus, Matthew Johnson, these guys that have not been able to crack it.
See, I think Erasmus goes inside this year, just straight inside, and kind of replace what Fife did at the start of last year. He's just the new guy.
Wow, okay.
Well, you can't really ignore him being like the best on ground of the waffle.
No, you can't. But Freo have, mate.
Yeah, I know. The thing with Freo though, which has been kind of good for fantasy coaches, is all those midfielders, and Hayden Young's the other one. Like I could see him going halfback again or something like that. Like, do they really need him in the midfield that much as well? Like I can see maybe not round one, but I can see like maybe throughout the season them shuffling.
Do they need Hayden Young back though? Maybe they play him forward because they've got Jordan Clark doing that job now, and
but he's a versatile player. You know what I mean? They can shuffle the deck chairs to actually get there. So
and then if that is all the case, just how much scoring can happen at Fremantle because you've got so. Like last year, there was some prolific scoring through Luke Ryan and Clark and Brayshaw and Sarong. And, maybe these players didn't hit their utmost potential because they had down patches in the season. I think that's true for Ryan, Brayshaw and Sarong.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Even if O'Driscoll was to play, how much scoring is there for him? Because Sharp was the prolific wing.
No, yeah. Oh, yeah, he was, but he's still only a 70 average guy. But like, there's another.
He had boom games.
Yeah. That's true. He was just really up and down with what his output.
Yeah.
But I think given that game style, I think that's encouraging for O'Driscoll, really, because they can channel things through their wings and stuff like that. The thing with the Freo midfielders, I don't think they personally affect each other too much. They play a style of play that's pretty high possession that they all can kind of chip in a little bit. I know they got
chipping.
They got a bit more direct as the season went on. But there was times where you just look at Luke Ryan just chipping back to Clark, chipping back to Ryan, like actually looking behind them and just instead of going forward and stuff like that.
It was excellent.
Yeah, it's great for fantasy. So like if they
on a Sunday afternoon,
the issue is they didn't make finals like when they were shoo-ins to make it really. So they might switch things up a little bit, but I still think there's scope for O'Driscoll to at least have like a Sharp type season.
So O'Driscoll on the wing, Erasmus as an inside mid.
I think so.
Round one.
Yeah, it's either I don't see Erasmus playing on a wing though. That's the thing. I see him either playing inside mid or not playing at all.
Fife's injured at the moment too, isn't he?
Yeah.
So maybe it's, I love it.
The other one's Matt Johnson, because he was that good scorer, but he was playing on the wing a fair bit. But he would kind of do what Willem Drury does a little bit at Port, where they kind of starts on a wing but then pushes in to the midfield as well. So he's another one, but I don't know. I think maybe those kind of guys that the kind of fourth or fifth kind of ranked midfielders, like inside midfielders, they're a bit more capped. But I think the wingers, someone like O'Driscoll, could be like a 75 to 80 guy. And like I said before, like if you're playing 7 midfielders, you're playing a 75 to 80 average guy most weeks.
Is Shea getting any CBAs in there?
That's the thing, yeah. I think it's probably a 70-30 split, like 70% forward,
it's going to be
midfield.
Fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. Stash options is the next part of the podcast we'll have a look at. Cam McKenzie, do you see a breakout this season, or is it we wait another year?
I don't know. There's been so many of those guys. Josh Ward, you spoke a little bit about last week. Cam McKenzie, Connor McDonald, and just seeing like how this youth brigade is coming up together. And like people thought that they would have those second year breakouts. They didn't really. And their midfield looks pretty set.
Yeah. I do agree. I can't see a world where he just kind of breaks out this season. It's especially because they just brought. I know they're not exactly midfielders, but they just brought more personnel in that will just push other players out, and he's the first one on the chopping block to go. So I don't think he's going to see any huge improvement, but definitely one to watch for the future because he does have talent. We'll try to get through these ones quickly because we are pushing towards the hour mark now. Harvey Gallagher, my boy. I think it was just good signs to see him get midfield time in 2024, especially under Bevo. But he probably needs one of those, Treloar, Liberatore to drop off, and then
there's another year there.
Yeah, exactly. And then Jackson Binns, is he ever going to live up to those VFL scoring? Like, it's too hard to ignore, though, right?
Oh, not for us, it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Like for keeper leagues, like to stash him away.
Oh, you're going to have him there. If you've got deep benches, if you're able to keep him, if you're in dynasty leagues, then bonanza.
So my thinking of Doherty playing on the wing, like when he gets injured, he could be the next guy in.
Binsy.
So, Kane McAuliffe, he was one of the best scorers of his draft pool last year. Richmond aren't going to win enough footy, though, I think, this season for him to really be relevant. They'll be like West Coast for a few years.
Hey, he'll be best 22, though.
I heard a rumour. I don't know if I but I can't remember which player it was. It was one of their senior players actually saying to someone who knows him that they don't think they're going to win a game. He reckons they're going to be worse than GWS in their first season.
I would be shocked. I've got and I know this is completely beside. I work with a Richmond Nuffy, and he was trying to convince me that they were going to win 10 games this year, and I almost fell off my
ludicrous.
chair. And I now have a standing 2K spear bet on 10 wins for the season. I may as well cash in now.
Absolutely, just see if there is early.
I've never had a surer thing come my way.
They could not. I don't see who they're beating next season. They got no
and
one.
if you lose to Richmond, that's on you.
Yeah. That's Port versus GWS in 2011 areas. Yeah. Anyway, Clay Hall's the other one. I don't know enough about West Coast midfield makeup, like who it's going to be. Like, no idea. Are they going to keep pushing, older blokes like Yo through there? Are they going to start rotating younger people through?
Sure. The logic says he's got to get games. If he's fit, he's got to get games.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you just blood your youth?
Yeah, exactly. So if Clay Hall does, considering I think he only played 1 or 2 games. Did he get a gig? I can't remember. He was a huge raps in the preseason last year. They were talking about round 1 start, and then he got injured. I was watching it. He got injured, knocked out in a preseason match, and that kind of ruined his round 1 chances. And then I think there was another injury later on. I'm not sure if he actually overcame it and came on as a sub at some stage, but yeah, not really sure.
Played 3 games last year. 3
games, yeah, cool. I was right the first time. Just got to back myself. But anyway. And then the next one on the list, so Clay Hall, I reckon, considering he didn't play last year, he's not breaking out or anything next season, so he's a stash. Angus Sheldrick, we know what he's capable. Does Parker open the door for him?
Parker didn't play a lot last year.
Until the pointy end, though. And Parker would have played a lot more if he didn't get suspended for 6 weeks.
That's true.
Think. If he was on the verge of breaking that team, he was going absolute ham at the VFL level. And then
we love to remember 2023, Sheldrick's year.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was due to necessity. New coach, who knows what happens there? So, could come in a bit more. And then, but yeah, again, until you're certain of there's a midfield spot for Sheldrick, you're stashing him away. And the other guy, Cooper Lord, who I did like in his 2 games, I think, last year, very small sample size, but had an 88 score playing in the midfield for Carlton when they had all their injuries and half their team were missing. So a long way from breaking into the side, but some positive signs there. We'll get on to the senior players, and we won't do this. We won't do a discussion. I just wanted you to give me a yes or no. Do you think any of these senior players will average 80 plus in 2025?
Love it. Let's go.
Patrick
Dangerfield. Are you playing this as well?
Yeah, I'll play with you.
Okay.
Patrick Dangerfield, is he averaging 80 plus this season?
Yes, just.
Okay. And I think no. I think it'd be the high 70s.
Ooh, okay.
Just because he would do an injury, he would ping a hamstring on 4 or something like that.
I'd go 80, 81.
Stephen Cornelio, averaging over 80.
Oh, yes, but will only play 12 games.
Yeah, yes, if fit, I think.
Yeah.
Tom Mitchell.
No.
I don't think so either. I don't think he'd play this season. Scott Pendlebury.
Yes, respect the GOAT.
I think he'd be just under.
High
70s.
Mid-80s.
Yeah.
Which is what he averaged this year.
Dion Prestia.
No, because he will ping a hamstring on 12 in one of the games.
Yeah, same, no. And Sam Doherty.
Yes,
yeah,
90s.
I think 80s to 90s, I think, providing there's no injuries. The reason why we bring up rookies, obviously, is for any new players out there is rookies. The reason we bring up senior players, we're on the rookies next. Senior players you can get a lot cheaper in trades. In drafts, they slide as well because everyone goes after youth. But if you're a team that's going to win the flag, who cares what age your players are that win a flag? So
I'm a massive believer in that.
Yeah. So those guys are probably the ones you're targeting later on, getting a bit cheaper in drafts, or at least trying to get them in drafts, because the people that own them, if they're not making finals, they are going to be trying to offload them as quickly as possible to get a draft pick or something like that. So
correct.
There you go. And the rookies, there is so many midfield rookies this year, and this is in no particular order. And we've already done a lot of analysis, and I do plan on doing a whole podcast on ranking rookies for dynasty leagues.
Give us the names.
But these are the ones I like that you should just be watching in the offseason. Again, this isn't in order, but Jagger Smith, Levi Ashcroft, Sid Draper, Harvey Langford, Finn O'Sullivan, Murphy Reed, Sam Lawler, Cody Anderson, the beast from the East, Xavier Lindsay, Ben Campriale, Finn O'Sullivan, Sam Marshall, Luke Urquhart. Again, not in an order, but those are the guys that if you're in a dynasty league, I think are going to be kind of going higher up in your leagues. And some of them I don't see playing for a while. It's just like Luke Urquhart, for example. Guy can't kick, but God, can he rack up fantasy points?
Of outside the top couple, who's your boy?
Out of this one, I've got a DT Talk article coming out this week, and I've specifically chosen Jagger Smith.
Love it.
So
I said outside the top couple,
but
that's okay.
Who's my boy? Out of the top couple, I don't really have. I do like. I do like Cody Anderson. Sorry, he has to be my boy, the beast from the east.
Okay.
So yeah, played a lot of Box Hill and senior footy last year, but then averaged huge numbers in the.
I like it.
So he was an academy player, so I'm not sure if he actually gets drafted otherwise. And yeah, but yeah, Jagger Smith is my boy. Just watching that guy's highlights, I just got Dacos vibes. You know.
Does it in a new draft, and not in a new Keeper League draft, but in a fresh year?
Yeah.
Is he number one?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, high up there. Like, there's a lot of talk about Levi, and the community were ranking Levi a lot higher, and I think, but that was purely numbers based. Like, because he had it at 126 points at VFL level, everyone's like, he's got to be the guy.
And people hear that he's better than Will, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is, I watch him, and this probably sounds really bad, but like, I just looked at him and watching. I thought he was just so slow, like very, very slow in the way he moves. And I see him just being, in that case, I just see him being that kind of inside guy long term at AFL level.
Some of the best fantasy players haven't had great pace.
I know, so that's the other thing as well. But like, I just look at Jagger and like the guy's like ball magnet, silky smooth, can weave, like that sort of stuff. Like a guy that genuinely they're going to give the ball to because he can just do magical stuff with it. Whereas Levi, I just see him as more of a, I could see him being like a Lockie Neal.
How
like
did
more
Carlton
type
get
thing.
those picks?
And which isn't bad because Lockie Neal's been awesome at fantasy, but still like I see like Jagger's going to be like your long-term Nick Dacos or, you know, something like that, or even like a Dane Swan or something like that. Whereas I see Levi being like a Lockie Neal kind of long-term, 100 plus average, no worries, but like, and
still
probably
good.
A better player, like, you know, win 2 Brownlow medals type thing.
Wow.
But maybe not the, you know, just comparing to Lockie Neal, but maybe not be the fantasy hype.
Yeah, that's right. Tom Rockcliffe never won a Brownlow.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the type of thing. All right, let's get into some listener questions. Funnily enough, last week's guest is top of the list. How do you get there? Jordan DeSeno wants to know, do we still have faith in Josh Ward? Scored 102 in the elimination final against the Dogs, or purely just injury cover for Will Day?
I don't know. The faith in Josh Ward's taken a couple hits over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
It still has to be a long-term option, but just doesn't seem to be first-choice midfield for the Hawks.
Yeah, I think that is right. It was a Will Day kind of cover. But the thing with Will Day is, like, I never thought Will Day would be a fantasy scorer. Like, no. I did early on as a junior because he had put up big numbers, and I drafted him really early in one of my leagues. But then, like, I just saw him as a winger the whole time.
Did you drop him?
No, I traded him for Daniel Rich. So I just saw him being a winger his whole life and never being.
And forevermore, Will Day's name is cursed.
That said, like, what's his top average still so far is only 90. So
yeah,
you got to wait and see with that.
Okay.
I thought he'd be injury prone for his whole season as well, which that's still kind of
still true.
Well. So
yeah,
he's still yet to prove me wrong there. And then we got Geordie's brother, Matty the centre. Can you see a breakout from Matt Johnson or Erasmus?
Here we go.
We've talked about that. Or is the midfield too stacked with Sarong, Young, Bolton, Jackson, maybe Warner and Cozzy next season?
Yeah, well, the Chad Warner addition there is actually really thoughtful in terms of long-term prospects. You would have to say, if Erasmus does not get much of a Guernsey this year, he has to get traded.
Yeah. I think he's got a future somewhere. If it's not at Fremantle, it's going to be somewhere else.
Has to.
Yeah, definitely. I see him breaking in. Like, if they were willing to give Fife time last year and he's not in anymore, they might give him time this year.
Erasmus is still in that stash category for me.
It's potential too. But yeah, probably more of a stash just given that he hasn't played a lot of footy yet, really. At TD Hawkins, I have Harry Schoenberg on my list in a deep dynasty comp. Traded for him years ago and have kept him due to stubbornness. Should I delist? I feel I know the answer, but I just need to hear it.
So he says 10 teams with 34 on each list, so 340 players.
Yeah.
Delist him.
Yeah, 100%. And I just want to say I told you so to all those Harry truthers 3 years ago when I was the one copying it for saying he's not going to be a fantasy player.
TD Hawkins, it's time.
Take that. Anyway, yeah, drop him. At Ben Gunsey, what does Carlton midfield rotation look like? I'm not sure I see Jagger getting good minutes in there if everyone's fit. So there's a few things. Like, Kennedy played a fair bit last year. Yep. He's obviously gone. Chera was experimented in other roles.
And he's also injury prone.
Also injury prone as well.
Walsh is injured.
Walsh is already injured. George Hewitt kind of was the sub sometimes as well. Like he was already on the fringe as well.
Such disrespect to some of these players.
Like, I think with your pecking order, you got Cripps already, obviously, and then you got Walsh behind him. But Walsh is injured. Like, I think he slots into basically their number 2 guy. Come round 1. Like, I can't see it. Like, why wouldn't you just promote this talent? Like, especially when you see like this has been the best midfield draft we've had pretty much forever. And then you see like Matt Rao come in and be number one guy, or close to the number one guy at Gold Coast as soon as he's drafted. You've got Nick Dacos, I know he played halfback, but coming in being number one guy. Like
Will Ashcroft did it in his first year.
Will Ashcroft as
Brisbane.
well. Like there's absolutely no reason why, if you just look at recent history, there's no, because he's a draftee, shouldn't factor in. They even reckon that the draft, like, you know, they interview senior players and they say, like, I cannot believe how ready to go these draftees are these days. Like, they've spent the last 5 years of their life preparing for this moment and they're so ready to go, like, and just to slot right in. They hit the gym way more than they used to. They're on diets. They even do bloody media training before they even get into the AFL. You know, like, they're so ready to go at AFL level. I just wouldn't worry about it. Like, even if you, like, compare him to like someone like Chera, like, in their draft years and stuff like that, he's miles ahead of him. You know what I mean? So
I would say that Ben, even if he doesn't see Jagger getting good minutes this year, even if that's the case, it still doesn't make him a bad pick.
I think his ceiling is going to be huge in AFL fantasy. At Diddley Docker, what's Sam Walsh's value after yet another injury interrupted preseason? Does his value drop to a late second, early third pick, given his durability?
I would say, so he came into last season out of preseason, had a back injury, and then still shot the lights out once he got in from like round 5 or 6 onwards. Like, you know, he averaged, you know, mid 100s to 110.
Yeah.
He still has incredible talent.
Yeah.
And still up there for mine. I don't think it does hurt because, I mean, a hamstring short-term injury, it's not related. I mean, is it related to his back issues? I suppose it
Probably,
could be.
Yeah.
But, you know, they'll give him every chance. Hamstring should only be short-term. He should still be there, you know, other issues aside in round 1.
Yeah. I think I'm with you because, like, again, it's not classic. Like, it's not salary cap. You don't worry about prices going up and down or having zeros or whatever. Like, if he's there in your grand final week, like, and he's playing, and he's probably going to score you 110 plus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, yes, it's annoying. You might struggle throughout the season, but if your team's good enough and whatnot, the players around him, you know, he'll come on and be 105 average at the minimum. And if he has one of those seasons where he doesn't cop injuries, he'll probably go 110 plus. Yeah. So I think it's still on the table to take him early. And I think if you look at the community rankings as well, he is dropping slightly at the moment. He's dropped down to 14th.
Yeah, but still 14. Like, it's just outside the first round.
But before that injury, he was top 10.
Yeah.
Easy. So, yeah. He's definitely someone you can take early. And a couple quick ones. Draft Bible wants to know Sam Durham. How do you think he's 25? Does he go bigger or smaller than last year?
Same.
I just cannot see what area he gets better in to score more.
100%. Like, had a sensational year.
Yeah.
Essendon fans would just be happy with more of the status quo.
Yeah. He averages 80, I think. Just 80 on the dot. That's it. Yeah.
Clip it.
And then another Essendon player, Robert Phyllis, 31, wants to know Elijah Sardis, what's his 2025 prospects?
I don't know.
I'll look at the wing. So talking the preseason is because that's where he's kind of, well, I remember Doss was huge when he was on the pod saying he's going to be an inside guy one day. I was pretty firmly that he is going to be a winger at AFL level, and I feel like I'm in the right so far. If you look at the wing position, you've got Nick Martin potentially going back to the wing this season. That's the talk out of Essendon to, you know, offer support further up ground, because I don't know why they need 4 distributors off that half-back line when they can't win games. Then you look at other players. So Archie Roberts, I know he played 4 games, but he averaged over 80 from those 4 games. You've got Xavier Dersma, who's also a big a good scorer on the wing, an 80-plus average
had some great games too.
Injury-prone as well. But then they also do weird things like Nick Cox and Harry Jones to play taller wings on there. Plus, if Setterfield comes back in, he's spent some time on the wing purely just because he can't force his way into that midfield as well. So, like, there's potentially 6 players, I think, that are ahead of him at the moment. So I just don't see what he does, how he can find a fit centre side, and when he does, how he scores. So he needs to go somewhere else, I reckon. He needs to go to another club.
I got one more question for you before we round this out.
Yep.
And I know it's been a long podcast, and it's more got to do with keeper league management.
Yep.
So this week we obviously learnt that Nick Newman has done a season-ending injury.
Yeah.
Where do you stand as a keeper league manager on using one of your rare keeper positions on a season-ended injury? And Bailey Smith was another example of this last year. He'd already done the season-ending injury before we started.
Yeah, I think if they're guaranteed primo and they're under 27 years old, you lock them away, no questions asked. Like you sacrifice a spot for the season because it's going to
take it on the chin.
I think once they get a bit older, maybe 28, 29, 30, I think Newman's 31.
Yeah.
that's when it starts to draw questions. Because, like, is he going to come back from that? Sam Doherty has been kept every year, injured year, by the coach who owns him.
Yeah.
That guy's also finished probably bottom 4 every single year.
And now his value was diminished with each held.
So maybe trading is the way to go to someone who is down the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's probably for
But
guys,
trying to sell someone who has a season-long injury that is in their 30s.
Yeah, it's really tricky. Like, I think in deeper leagues, it's like where you keep like more keepers, it's not an issue because like you're going to have them anyway. You got a spot for them. I think in the shallower leagues, it makes it very, very hard. Personally, Nick Newman, given his age and looking at some younger players that could potentially replace him, I'll probably be dropping at this stage.
And it's such a hard one because he has had 2 absolutely banging seasons, but you got to walk away.
That said, I'll be trying to pick him up late in drafts for the following year.
Well, that's right, and that's where the strategy comes in because you put him back in the pool. You probably want to pick him up again, but how early do you go? Because you don't want to waste a decent draft pick, but someone's going to take him.
With my team's got pretty good depth. Like I could probably go a bit earlier as well, and then have like a primo scorer for 2026.
Yeah,
wait and see.
Future Heff.
We'll have to wait and see. Anyways, that's it for another week. Thanks for joining us. Anything you want to plug before sign up to?
Shiva? Sign up to DT Shiva. We've got registration open till Friday, Feb 28. After that, the gate will be closed.
What are the entry fees this year? Because it is a bit of sometimes an issue for people. They want to know.
So $60 for the year. Yeah. But there is not only prizes per league, but there is also competition-wide prizes as well. So head to dtshiva.com.au. Not only is the prize structure up there, but our full rules charter. Yeah. And it is crystal clear. Like, I know a lot of people talk about how tricky it can be to commission one league. Yeah. But, I'm in charge of 70 plus. And so in terms of our rules charter, everything is to the letter. So, I've got something to fall back on. But it is a fantastic community. It is a somewhat thing that beginner draft coaches, experienced draft coaches are treated exactly the same. We will find you a league. There will be like-minded people. It's a fantastic community to get involved with. And all you got to do is come along and sign up. So dtshiva.com.au, search DT Shiva on Facebook or at DT_Shiva on X. And you can learn a bit more about it.
On that note, get around our stuff at Keeper League Pod on all of the socials. Jump on our Discord group is something I'd like to encourage listeners to do because it's the group that I'm the most active on. Yeah. I'm not really a big, since X went to Elon, I don't really do much on X anymore because I find it just a vile place to be. Mate. It's gross. Never been a Facebook guy.
Apparently Sophie Monk's in trouble. That keeps coming my way on X.
Right. Yeah, well, I haven't seen that one. It's not on my algorithm. But apparently TikTok's getting bought by Elon too. So
God. Who the fuck would know?
Something like that. But anyway, Discord is my best, the one that I'm most active on, where I chat to all the listeners and stuff like that. If you're a gold member, jump on the gold members group because there's constant dialogue on random stuff in there, and it's a good little community, even within the whole community there. But if you need to find a league or you just want to put your trades up there, it's pretty anonymous, Discord as well, more anonymous than Facebook. Unless you tell someone your username, you can kind of ask people, and your league mates can't find you as easy.
Yeah, that's right.
Stuff like that. So,
they can't track your movements.
Yeah. So, and it's kind of it's kind of a bigger community as well. So I know that none of my league mates are actually they're all pushing 40 type thing. So no one's actually on Discord as well. So they're not even going to figure out things I ask as well. Yeah. So it is kind of a bit obvious that my name is Heff KL on the Discord, but none of them use it. So it's fine. I can ask all my league questions there and stuff. But everyone else is anonymous. Anyway, so get on that. And sign up as a member if you want to support the podcast as well. So many bonus resources, more coming out, trying to service the Supercoach community a lot more this season as well by doing a few extra things. I think I'm going to try to get together a Supercoach mock draft simulator for keeper leagues.
So I'm a massive fan of the draftees handbook. I love reading through the stats and the amount of research you've put into that is so valuable. It's awesome.
The funny thing with that is it becomes a little bit dated after because you're writing these before the draft. Yeah. And then you see which club they go to and it's someone like Xavier Lindsay, not on my radar, but then they say he's going to be playing on the halfback this year, round 1. And you're
ding.
So I am going to do some updates on draftees and rank them and that sort of stuff. Not on the guide, but we'll do a podcast on it later on for people and stuff like that. So, yeah. Anyways, I think that's enough rambling for now. Thank you once again, Damon, for joining us this week.
Mate, absolute pleasure. Love being back.
We'll talk to you next week to talk about the rucks, the most interesting line.
Cheers, mate.